All right. So my name is Julian Thielman. I'm one of the assistant deans of admission here at Reed. I've actually had the pleasure of working with a couple of you throughout this process, so it's great to see you all again. And welcome to this session on getting the most out of academic advising. Some quick notes about how this session will run. We have two wonderful professors with us here today to talk about what academic advising looks like here at Reed, how to get the most out of it. So I'm going to introduce myself and then pass it over to them. And then please go ahead and put any questions that you have about academic advising into the chat. And then as the moderator for the session, I will go ahead and bring those up as they come in. And then without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Kelly and Libby.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, hi. I'm Dr. Kelly Chacón. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a chemistry professor in the chemistry department. I'm a biochemist and a bioinorganic chemist. So I also bridge the biochemistry and molecular biology program that we have. And I received tenure about 3 years ago, I think. We all know how the pandemic makes time a little weird, but I'm really excited to talk with all of you. And I can also speak a little bit to those of you who may be thinking about allied health or pre-med, things like that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Drumm. I'm a professor in the Spanish department. I use she, her pronouns. I study mainly Peninsular Spanish, so Spain, Spanish literature, but I teach in Humanities 110. And I also teach in the language program at Reed. So I have been here a long time, seen a lot, advised a lot of students, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Cool, wonderful. So to sort of get us started here, could one of you please explain the general principles of a Reed curriculum and how we use things like credits, distribution requirements, prereqs, and sequences to make sure that students have a solid liberal arts experience?
Do you want to just go back and forth with who goes first, Kelly? Okay. So liberal arts education, we think of this as having two main components. So you have breadth and then depth. So depth you get through your courses in your major field of study, and it could be an interdisciplinary program like neuroscience, but that would be your major. And breadth you get through what we call our college requirements. So college requirements are things we call them group requirements would be another way to think about this. And it's really the main idea is to expose you to different components and courses of a liberal arts education. So for example, you could be a chemistry major, but you also would take, you'd be asked to take 3 general requirements or college courses, general credit courses in 2 other groups. So one of those groups would be literature, literary studies in the humanities and fine arts, and one would be in history and social sciences. So you would take some courses in your first couple of years typically, but not always, in those groups, in addition to your depth courses in your major field of study. How's that, Kelly? Hit it mainly? Yeah.
I think you did, yeah.
Okay. So it's confusing at first, but once you get here and you start getting all this language, it's not really confusing at all. And you'll find in your registration materials has explanations for this and how you can go about meeting these college requirements or group requirements, how you can get into courses in your major, at what time you should do each, and all of that. There's all sorts of advice about this. It works well, in other words.
Yeah, I find that the more that, we just sit down and we actually write things out or draw it up on a whiteboard of each year and what they're going to, then it starts to make a little more concrete sense of how it all fits together. So it's okay if for right now it feels very abstract.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So could you both, or could either of you talk a little bit about how students are actually matched with an academic advisor, whether they're assigned an advisor in their major, whether that matters?
Well, it's a big old black top hat. And what we do is we draw out a name. No, so the best way that I could describe it is actually the students really give us the clues that we need. So when they write things that they want their advisor to know, which is a document that you will fill out, it's simple and kind of to the point, you'll rank kind of your top interests. And it's okay if it's undecided, you know, that's also a totally legitimate thing. But often you'll find that you are like, well, at least most interested in finding out more about German, or I'm more interested in finding out more about the physics the sort of curriculum. And so you'll rank 1, 2, and 3, and that will help us to figure out who best can help you. And sometimes you might give us two things that are both fairly social sciencey, and so we'll match you with someone who can best speak to that. It might not be exactly the exact field of study you want to be in, but someone who really knows that department and help you get in the right direction. Sometimes if you have more disparate things, so you could say, well, maybe physics and Spanish and then economics. Well, we do have some really amazing super advisors who are really have seen a lot of different things. And they may not be in your exact thing, but once again, they have seen a lot of people go through different things and they can really help you. So no matter what, you're going to find that we have folks who are going to at least initially advise you, who have a pretty good idea of those three things.
So for example, I advised students who had on that list of 3 general interests had put psychology first. And I'm sure some of them were thinking, why is my advisor somebody in the Spanish department? Well, it's because I was asked to help out with advising in psychology. So we had a meeting with the chair of the psychology department who clued us all in. And absolutely, if we ran into some questions, we called somebody over in the psychology department. So don't be concerned if you have strong interests and you're not matched with somebody in your field. As Kelly said, it doesn't really matter. By the time when you declare your major, so after the first 2 years, then you can switch and you definitely would want somebody in your department, your major department at that point. But in the first 2 years, somebody outside your major should be able to help you or will know who to ask if you have questions. I enjoy meeting students from other fields. It's interesting for me, for sure. If anything, I end up getting to know students from across the college, which I like, and we have to say goodbye at the end of 2 years, and it's kind of sad. We'd like to still be talking to each other, so that it generally works fairly well. If, however, you are concerned, it's so easy to change your advisor. There's a half a sheet of paper, the new advisor signs it, and that takes care of that. So you're not going to hurt anybody's feeling if you change your advisor. It's easy to do, it's pretty anonymous, and it happens all the time. So, there's some movement around here.
Wonderful. So, Libby, you teach Spanish in the humanities. Kelly, you're a chemistry professor. How does advising look different in between the sciences and the humanities? And also, how is it the same?
I think it's the same for study abroad. Very passionate about that, no matter what your major is. I think there's a misconception somehow that if you want to do something in the sciences, that there's no way for you to do that. But I think the very first thing most of us ask with our new advisors, are you interested? If you are, let's get that figured out. So that's one commonality. What do you think, Libby? And I can keep chiming in here.
Absolutely. And I would say at the level of the general college requirements, right? We're all advising about the same great liberal arts education. So in the first couple of years that, you might get a slightly different advice depending on who you're talking to, but that's good. We like that. I mean, we're not all, we're on the same page, I would say generally, but people are different, obviously.
Yeah.
So yes, if you're interested in study abroad, you probably want to let your advisor know that right away. If you have particular interests within the college, so you want to major in biology, but you really love music, how can you bring those two things together? All of us are going to be able to give you good advice about that. So where I run into trouble is in the particulars of the science curriculum.
Mm.
There are different components, and I'm not teaching those courses, so I might not be as quick on the responses to the particularities. But I call my colleague Kelly on the telephone and I say,
Great.
Kelly, I'm not quite sure how I can get this person in here. We're having a little trouble figuring out if this sequence is better or that, and Kelly's available to help me. So it's not a big place. It's not an impersonal place. I like to talk to people across the college. I give them a call on the phone and we figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think some commonalities are our first year or with an advisee is easy. You're going to take Hume, okay? You're going to take Hume, and we're probably going to encourage you to start a PE course just so you kind of know what that's about. It's good to kind of, I mean, and we have things that are, you know, we have archery and yoga and rugby. We have all kinds of things. So we'll try to find something that at least gets you comfortable with that, because the number one thing you need to graduate, where you will not graduate, is if you do not have your PE credits. So we want to make sure you get those. And then science, I think, is different too. Like you said, there are some particulars around timing. You know, if you would like to get a chemistry degree, you really do need to take things in a certain order, and they build upon themselves because it's sort of this central science. So there's a lot that goes in, and any of the STEM degrees, I think, would agree with that. There's room for electives, there's room for all of that, but we want to make sure that you have the math, that you're doing your Hume, that you are getting into that physics class if you want to take higher level stuff, and to prepare you for the qualifying exam process in the junior year so that you can declare major. So we just want to make sure of that. However, things happen if you decide that, you know, you were doing one major, sort of thinking about it in your first year, and then your second year you had taken a class and you're like, that's it, I want to be a biology major. It's not impossible for us to figure it out if you're a year off, but we definitely try to get you on a track that is as flexible as possible while still making sure you're getting the requirements in case you go in one direction. So does that make sense to you, Libby?
Absolutely. Some of my favorite students to advise are the folks that come in. I'd like to be a psychology major, but I really love philosophy, and I'm hoping to study abroad in France. So what we do is sit down and think about a first year, so both semesters, how you can begin to meet the requirements or explore a major in psychology, how you can take the first courses in philosophy, and then think about what semester would you want to study abroad in Paris, and do you need to have more language study to make that a better experience. So we plot all that out, and then basically at the end of the conversation we'll say, so look, at the end of the year, you can definitely be a psychology major, no problem. You can certainly be a philosophy major, no problem. The plan is that you'll study abroad in Paris in the first semester of your third year. Fabulous. So this will all work and you're going to meet your requirements. And it also allows you to change your mind. So there's no problem here. There's flexibility, and it allows you to, help you to relax and enjoy the courses and know that we expect you to change your mind or not. Some people never, they're going to do this and that's what they do. And that's great too. But you're allowed to play around within reason. You've got the benefit of time here. So that hopefully is not anxiety producing, but will allow you to really enjoy yourself and take really great courses that you're interested in and explore your interests.
Wonderful. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. One of our students is wondering how many advisees each advisor actually has.
It depends. So you know, Reed, is you like, I love actually that we are the academic advisors in a lot of ways. It's really a special thing. And at first, new faculty are kind of daunted by it, I think, just as much as the students might be. You know, it's one thing to teach it, it's another thing to kind of understand that stuff. So generally for newer faculty, they don't begin advising until around their second year. We go through a big onboarding process, and they probably will be given, you know, a good small number of advisees. I don't know the exact number, and it really just depends on your department and sort of enrollment and things like that. But for me, I range between 14 and 21, depending. the more senior you are, or the more subscribed majors. So BMB is definitely one where I serve in that capacity, or those who might be pre-med, because they might want to know a little bit more about their grades and things like that, which at Reed, is something that we don't emphasize. So yeah, I would say between that and then after sabbaticals or times away from the college, when we come back, sometimes the load will be a little bit lighter. But yeah, I would say that's a pretty good assessment.
Yeah. I was on sabbatical last year. I have 12. I looked. So, and that's a great number. That allows me to check in with folks, schedule appointments when we need to. It works pretty well.
Yeah.
Awesome. So another question in the chat. Do all academic advisors know pretty well which classes are coming up when this class in spring of 2025 or in fall 2026, that sort of thing? Or do course offerings shift from year to year?
That's a good question. So yes and no, like most things in life. So the core courses are offered every year, and those are predictable, and definitely we can the courses that you need in your first 2 years of study to progress through a major it's absolutely clear, and they're offered at all each, in either in the fall or in the spring, sometimes in both the fall and the spring. Now, the elective courses, that's going to shift. So in my my division, so literature and languages, my elective courses are on a 3-year schedule. So if I teach something, I taught a course on Garcia Lorca, for example, this semester. Within the next 3 years, I will teach that course again. So over the 4-year cycle, you'll hit most of the electives. You should. So we know as of right now, we have a schedule for both semesters next year. We know what's offered in next spring. We definitely know what's offered in the fall. In the following year, so 2 years from now, we know that they're teaching Humanities 110. We know that we are teaching Spanish 112 and 111. We know that there is going to be X number of first-year chemistry courses, first-year biology courses, first-year psychology courses. All of that is set.
Yeah, definitely. For chemistry, for example, it's a little bit less flexible, although we're working to long-term kind of increase the number of electives that we have, but we've had a smaller department. And so you can pretty much count on what we have being what we have. There are differences, I think, in biology, again, like the cycle, I think, but the idea is that you can plan out with your advisor, knowing essentially often it's when somebody's on leave as well. We are really fortunate to have amazing, just top tier visiting professors as well that come in. And while that might seem like, oh, I won't get to take that one class because so-and-so is on sabbatical. Number one, you probably will get a chance during your time at Reed if it was really important, or you're going to have something similar to that subject being taught by someone who is just really fresh on the scene and has new ideas. We love that diversity of bringing in fresh ideas. So you kind of sometimes don't know what you're going to get when you first start if someone is going to go on leave. But again, I think it really enriches the curriculum. There was a question about AP. Do you want me to just?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So that happens a bit for us, where a student may come in with AP or IB, or perhaps they attended a community college in their senior year, things like that. Totally awesome. It really just depends on the department. So when you see that sort of boilerplate about cannot be used to meet the college's distribution or division requirements, that means that we feel that the course that we teach that seems related to the one that you received your AP score in, for example, general chemistry at high school versus taking our college chemistry course, we in general do not accept, you can use those credits, those AP credits towards your overall graduation requirements, no problem. But we really strongly believe that where you left off in, say, your chemistry course in high school, we're going to leave that in the dust in about week 3. And so we know that our course is going to give you more. And so everyone must take it. Other places, other departments may have you test in, like, okay, I see you have this AP score that's promising, but we're just going to give you a quick little assessment to see if you're ready to go ahead and take the second year of the physics curriculum, for example. And I believe mathematics may do that as well. And then Libby, what about for languages?
We ask people to take the placement exam. It's, nobody likes to do this. I completely understand, but it really is a good indicator of level. And it's just hard for us to tell. I had 4 years of high school Spanish. Well, we don't know what your high school Spanish program was like. I got a 5 on the AP test. Well, you're probably going to place into this, but just take the exam so we can make sure that you're in the right level. So this is for everybody's benefit, right? We want you to have a good experience. We want you to be learning. We want you to be in the right level.
Yeah, and we're not trying to like keep you from anything. So it's not like
No.
the test is going to be some like, well, but can you do this? It's just,
No.
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Cool, and it looks like we have a follow-up question on that, asking what it means, just sort of what this language means. You can use AP credits towards general credits. Does that mean that this AP scores can be used towards electives, so you
Yeah.
can take fewer electives?
So this is a Reed thing. So most colleges, we talk about credits, but at Reed, we talk about units. So one course is 1 unit, right? So that's different the way that some other colleges and universities where you might take a course and it's worth 3 credits. So that it doesn't really line up exactly. So point number 1, we're talking about units, and to graduate, you need 30 units. And as Kelly said, 6 PE credits, but that's a different problem. So of your 30 units, these AP courses that you've transferred in count toward that general number. So it might not count for your correct me if I got this wrong, Kelly. They might not count for your introductory chemistry course, but they still count toward that overall total of 30 units. Does
Yeah.
that help?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Some students, I mean, electives are great and it could be handy. For example, say you're having a particularly heavy personal time and you're like, maybe this spring I would like to take 3 units and it's nice to know that I'm not going to worry about that. Or some people really want to focus on their thesis in their senior year. Personally, I think you should take as much as you can during the 4 years that you're here. But there's ways that, just everyone's different. So there's different ways to look at it, but it is nice. It's just a nice little insurance in your pocket that you've got those.
In a sort of similar vein, there's a question in the chat asking about whether students can take a course in a summer school at a different institution to gain credits, whether that would satisfy certain types of requirements, if any.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can I saw there was one about study abroad too and transferring credits in. So you can, if it's an accredited college or university, you absolutely can transfer credits in. And there's a process for that someone will explain when you get to campus. You talk to somebody in the registrar's office, super nice, and they can get you set up with that. Now, will it count for a departmental requirement? That depends on each department, for the reason that Kelly already said, that first year chemistry at one college is different from first year chemistry at another. So faculty in different departments are going to want to look at the syllabus. They're going to want to look at what you studied to see if it is more or less equal to what you did. So we do this all the time with language courses. We have a language course. We stress writing, read, all 3 skills. So certainly writing, the oral component, and reading. And we're looking for courses that have all 3. So if it's a course that doesn't have an oral component, that might not count for credit to fill a particular requirement for graduation in the department. Now, can you still transfer that in for credit? Probably, yeah. Just what it's going to count as.
Okay, so I'm just getting some of the smaller little questions answered in the chat about.
So Kelly, let me answer the one about there was language. How do you know if you study abroad, if your courses are going to transfer? Also a really good question. If it's a Reed approved program, the courses will transfer. So that is one reason to look at. We've got many or very rich assortment of READ approved programs. So that's going to be save you some legwork there. Those courses are definitely going to transfer. Some of them will meet requirements, maybe one or two will fit a requirement for a minor in the Spanish department, for example, or in another minor program. Those are department specific decisions. But as far as adding to your units, your total of 30 units, they definitely will count. If you decide to go to a program that's not a READ approved program, then it's like transferring a course in from another accredited university. And there's more paperwork involved, there's some steps involved, but if you have a good reason to do that, then that's a choice. Maybe you'll decide to do that.
Yeah, the only specific things I would say, in general, a syllabus is helpful. Also, any community college or university, you just have to pay attention to the number of the class for most STEM courses. So just as because maybe you want to get some stuff done before you come to read, or perhaps you're taking a summer course and you want to, like, sometimes for some interdisciplinary, I'm just saying that, we're never closed off to anything or think that other courses in other places don't count. They generally do, but you do need to make sure with STEM courses that they are not sort of leading up to a majors level course. So introduction to chemistry for allied health might not be the full comprehensive. Usually it's the math that's missing. And those are great courses, in fact, if you want to take them just to feel like you're ready. But definitely just contact us if you're ever in doubt. And we'll usually ask to see a syllabus, and that is as simple as just emailing the institution. They're happy to help. If you have the professor or the teacher's email, just emailing them and asking for that information. It's not prohibitive.
So, quick question in the chat. How often do students meet with their academic advisors?
It depends on the student, and it depends on the advisor. So what I do is we'll meet during orientation, get you settled in your courses, and then I usually invite people to come back to office hours or to make an appointment with me after the first 2 weeks, just to stop by. How's everything going? Does it look good? Are you settled in? Anything I can help you with? Just a quick check-in. So no big deal. Then there are different points along the semester where you receive feedback about how you're doing in your courses. So I might check in with, just send an email to we do use email, so send an email to advisees, about a comment that they received, some feedback they received in a course. How's everything going? Come on by if you have questions. So I would say if I have 12 advisees, I'd probably I'm in contact with everybody 3 or 4 times during the semester. Depending on the personality, some folks come by a lot, and that's great. It's fun to chat, and we, get to know each other well. Some people have less need, thanks for the email, Libby, everything's going fine. I'll let you know if I've got any questions. That's great too. So it just, depends on the person. But we definitely meet then, I make an appointment with folks at certain times just to do the things we need to do. Are you set for your classes next semester? We're going to register for next year. We need to figure out how you're going to do that. You mentioned that you wanted to study abroad. Let's meet so we can talk about how to go about that. We might not have time to do that in August, so let's meet in October and think seriously about what that would look like.
Yeah, I do a couple of things. Definitely, I send kind of an email to everyone, like my dear advisees, around 4-week and 8-week, making sure that just everyone knows that even if they didn't receive a specific comment or anything, that this is a good time to check in. With first years, I like to meet for sure around 4-week. Just because, we're teaching you how to college really that first semester, and you might not have actually figured out how you work best. I mean, I really like sort of life hacking, when are you most awake? Are you having trouble with your sleep schedule? How are you taking care of yourself? What's not wanting to know much about social life, but just making sure that like you're feeling like you are figuring out how to do things and that and on your own, really. What does that look like for you to be a learner who's independent? The other thing I have is just a appointment link that is just a QR code. You can just outside my office, and every week I'll have 15-minute available whenever I have some little bits of time that are not just my office hours, which office hours are open to anyone, doors always open, and those are reliable, but sometimes you might be working or you might just not be able to come in at those times. And so you can always just book a 15-minute appointment with me, even if it's just to say hi or share a cat meme or whatever it is. I love to see it. Yeah.
I think that's actually a really important point. And I'm wondering if you could both speak a little bit more on that. Beyond choosing classes and sort of planning a schedule, how else do academic advisors support students? Are advisors helpful when students are looking for stuff like summer internships, jobs, study abroad, that sort of thing?
You want to go first, Kelly?
Sure. Well, it kind of depends. So sometimes, so let's say study abroad or internships. What we do best is to tell you when we aren't an expert on something, or we can gather the information that you have, whether that's vague or very specific, and connect you to the appropriate office and sort of mediate and facilitate those conversations. So once we know you're interested in study abroad, we try to help you as your advisor. We're going to do kind of some of the touchy feely, like, what are you thinking? Where would you like to go? What year might you like to do this? And then we're going to formally tell you how, because you're all adults now. It's amazing. We're going to tell you how to access that information. That's part of what advising is literally teaching you how to go about the administrative things that you need to do to succeed. And so if you're like, I cannot imagine emailing that department or that person, I often just have you open up your laptop with me and I help you draft that email. That's sort of what we do. And so whether it's study abroad or internships, how do I write this letter? There are places like the Center for Life Beyond Read that like have workshops and all this stuff. And again, we will connect you with that and say, this is your next step. But we also can do some of that stuff where you're like, okay, I got the information from CLBR and I tried drafting something. What is this? Does this look okay? Like, we can help with that kind of stuff.
Just to reiterate, there are a lot of resources at Reed, and it's certainly at the beginning in your first weeks on campus or first months, it's hard to know where these resources are located. So I think your advisor's a good, that's a good person to ask the question. I've got a question about something in the residence hall. I obviously am not going to be able to answer a question about the residence hall, but I know who you should talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So absolutely. I'm concerned. I need to get a job for next summer, and I'm not quite sure how to go about that. Definitely. I probably can't get you a job, although I do have a few contacts in town, but you want to go to the Center for Life, we can help direct you to whom you should speak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So ask, in other words, all sorts of people are here. Even if it's not your academic advisor, all sorts of people are here to help you. If you have a question, we have, we can, if we don't know the answer, we can direct you to the person who does.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Awesome. We've got another question in the chat. What would you say are the top 1 or 2 mistakes that you see new readies make in their first semester, in their first year?
I'm going to start this one just because. So I dropped out of high school very young, and I didn't go back to school until I was about 22, 23. So for me, it was a really big adjustment from like working food service and kind of just living this semi-adult life. Although, sometimes I didn't pay my rent on time and stuff. But anyway, the point here is that I had to learn kind of how to learn. And I think that students come in from so many different backgrounds, but one thing many of you all have in common is that you're fairly high achieving. And so you've been able to sort of navigate, the high school world or the education world in that realm. And now you're in this brand new place and you're doing it on your own. And that is when you get to know how you work or don't work. And so the thing that I would say top 1 or 2 learning moments. I wouldn't say they're mistakes. I mean, if I could drop out and become a professor, there's no one true way to get anywhere. But schedule your time, like understand where your time is going, and work around deadlines that are in your syllabi. And if they're not in your syllabi, ask. And really just think about the spaces in between those courses and optimize how you're working. And that's going to take a year to figure out. Sophomore year, generally people are like, okay, I think I've got this. But, those and protecting your sleeping habits is very important. You might have been able to kind of pull an all-nighter, or essentially just kind of walk into class and kind of just make it. But now, that 9 a.m. course, or, Hume or something like that, you've got to kind of come in ready with the readings so that you feel confident. It's not so much that we don't think you're going to be able to learn it, but college is a new experience. And so you want to come in there just feeling like you've done everything you're supposed to do. And so that means learning more about how you best learn. And scheduling, to me, is the biggest thing I have to help students with. Get your sleep.
Here's my top 2. Go to class.
Yeah.
So no matter what,
Please go to class.
You didn't finish something, you didn't, the big mistake is then to disappear. You just make yourself go to be at every single class, no matter what. So that would be rule number 1. The other is don't feel like you have to do it all in the first semester. It's an adjustment. Most students take 3 courses, which in comparison to your friends at other colleges and university, that's not going to seem like a lot. It may start out kind of slow and you think, not sure about what I'm doing here, but use that time to make some friends, get established in Portland, look around a little bit, take a PE course, get one of those guys out of the way. Just really take the time to settle in and get some good, as Kelly's saying, get into some good habits. Think about how you work, how you're going to schedule your time. And and if you don't feel extremely busy right away, you definitely will, we assure you, as time goes on.
Awesome. So there's one more question in the chat. And then I think it might be good to sort of pivot to talking about first meetings that students have with their academic advisors. And this last question is about transferring credits over. I think we've already talked a little bit about how this varies from department to department, but we have a student asking about credit transferring from other accredited institutions for courses taken by non-transfer students before matriculating. And I believe that from working with this student, they might be referring to math courses. So I don't know if either of you are prepared to talk about that.
That's a specific one, and that's okay. Again, I think what I had mentioned, I do believe math is one of the departments that is happy to entertain, incoming credit for something depending on the nature of it. So without getting too specific or out in the weeds, I think if it is anything that is calculus or above, and above meaning more advanced, in general, if it's from an institution that allows, accredited, they will accept, but they still might actually give you just a placement just to make sure, especially if it was a while ago, just to make sure it's still fresh. Math is a language like any other, and you can get a little rusty, so it just depends.
Wonderful. So now sort of moving into that first meeting with that students will have with their advisors, we've got a question about when students are matched with their academic advisors and when do they start working with them?
I'm not exactly sure at what time this happens, but by June 1st, you're going to turn in this sheet with your preferences, the 3 departments that you're considering for a major, and then a kind of a note to your advisor is hooked into that. From there, you'll get assigned to an advisor. I really don't know when they let you know that, but you, during orientation, so in August, you have many meetings. you will feel over-oriented by the time this all finishes up. That people will explain all aspects of life at Reed, but certainly the academic program. And Thursday of that week, you meet with your one-on-one with your academic advisor. And that really is the first time that you meet people. Every once in a while, I'll get an email from someone before then, and it's fine. But usually this is stuff you can take care of in that one meeting. And that's when your classmates are all having these same meetings. So it really is the time where a lot of work like that gets taken care of. If you've taken the placement exams, the results, you will know the results by then. And we'll just sit down. So at that first meeting, maybe I'll launch into that. Or Kelly, why don't you take that part first? Anything else you want to add there?
At the first meeting?
Yeah, why don't you go with that?
Oh, wait, well, okay, wait, where were you? I was like thinking of all the things.
The first meeting,
First meeting,
Thursday
all
of
right,
orientation week.
Great. Well, so first meeting, you're gonna, yeah, we all just are ready for it. It's coming. We know it's usually Thursday, right? So we're just in our offices. We've got the phone ready to go, and we prepare ahead of time by reading your stuff. So we read just the basics and then also your letter to us with your rankings and things like that. And I encourage you all, since we are coming upon that deadline, not just to put in, you know, your academic dreams and desires, but also just things you're coming into college with maybe a little trepidation or unsure about. I love to know if you're first gen or if there's any intersectionality that you feel comfortable letting, you know, an advisor, a confidential advisor know, just so we can just make sure that we give you the strategies that you need. We're not your therapist or a parent, but we are a confidential place for you to tell us things. It goes in the vault and you can really just be honest there. So then we go into giving you your PIN so that you can sign up for the classes you want to sign up for. And often in that first meeting, I'll have a place outside of my office where you can try to put things in on Solar and try to register for different things. And you feel safe knowing you can come in and check with me. So it just depends.
So they're half-hour meetings and they go pretty quickly. They will explain this to you when you get here, so please do not worry about this beforehand. But they will ask you to sketch out a schedule and give you some paperwork that helps with this. That's a good thing to do because that half hour goes pretty quickly. So basically, when students come in, I will, you know, as Kelly said, we will have read the file, so we'll know something about you, but we'll chat to try to get to know people. It's really interesting to begin to make connections and explore people's interests. You know, I noticed here you said that you were, you know, I could study abroad's on my mind, that you wanted to study abroad in China. That's so fascinating. How did you get interested in China? So we might chat about things like that before, but then we really want to, and you're going to be anxious about getting into courses. So we'll look at your plan, your schedule for the semester, answer all the questions that you have about what's a general college requirement. How do what about my major? When do I begin to take major courses? So we'll work all of that out, answer the questions you have, and it's a plan for the whole year. So at the end of the day on Thursday, you will be in a group of courses for the year. There might be some wiggling around after that, but for the most part, you'll be all set. And then you can change your mind. There'll be, you know, later on, but at least you know at the end that you're in a set of courses, and that I think for most people is reassuring. How's that? Anything else I missed there? Or, yeah.
No, I think that's good.
I
Cool.
want to add about the questionnaire. We're all different. No pressure on any of this. So
Yeah.
as much as you want to tell and as little as you want to tell, but it is always interesting. You know, somebody might say, I'm a really bad procrastinator,
Yeah, exactly.
or I know myself and I really would prefer not to have courses before 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I'm by 4 p.m, I'm toast. I really need to have all my courses in the morning. That's all good stuff to get out on the table.
Cool. And so I think you've touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else that students should do ahead of time to prepare for these meetings?
So I'm looking a little bit in the chat. There's some questions about the placement exam. Please don't sweat these. There are most, I think, are online. The language ones are online. Somebody that has a job at a summer camp, if I read that earlier, it's an hour and it's online. So if you can find a time to do it, nobody's asking you to study, to do big preparation for this. I mean, if you want to look over some notes and things, you know, why not? But certainly you don't need to study for these. That kind of defeats the point. And if you can do it before you get to campus, that's great. You can also do it when you get to campus, although that's a busy week. You're going to be meeting a lot of new people and all of that. But if you can, you probably could go to the library and take an hour. It's an hour, and do it then. It's good to do before classes start, because we do have people take the placement exam during the first week of classes if they feel like they're in the wrong section. That's possible too, but that's a little stressful because your classes have started. So if you can do it over the summer, that's a good thing to do.
One thing you could do if you felt like it is you could look us up. If you're feeling nervous about the meeting, we've got our little websites on the Reed faculty pages, or I'm sure you'd find different things. Just so that you can feel like you have something to talk about. Like, I saw a picture of your dog on your website, so that can be helpful to not feel like you're going into the unknown. Looking at the map, where we are or something like that. Or if you're here before orientation week, just sort of walking around and getting your bearings, that can be good too. Fall schedule of courses, just a quick question there. I think it's already ready, right? The fall schedule of courses, more or less. Like, we've already set our courses for next fall, so I think you can do it
Do
anytime.
they have access? If you look on Solar, or if you look at the registrar webpage, there's a schedule of classes linked, and you can take a look. Yeah.
Yeah, and all to the better if you have a draft for us to look at, that's great. But if you're also just like, I don't know how to even start, no worries.
No problem.
Some people are preparers to feel good, and some people are like, I'm just gonna see what happens. And it just depends on the day, doesn't it?
Cool. So please feel free to put more questions about that first meeting in the chat as they come up, but we can go back to talking about advising just more generally. For both of you, what's the biggest change that you see in advisees between their first and fourth year?
Oh, a lot of changes. I think you come in who you are for sure, but who you are becomes expanded. That's the entire purpose, I think, of higher education, and especially a liberal arts education, is that you come in with some set of interests or ideals or opinions, and you express those, you define those, you refine them along the way in the way that we do things, and you try things or learn things you haven't before. And so generally that first year is just, again, learning how to college, and then also going, oh my gosh, this is what college is. I didn't think I'd learn this, or I didn't think a professor could be wacky or human, or, you start to realize that this is an organism and a community. And because it's smaller, you really do end up feeling like you're a part of this. And so I think by the first year, you get a sense of that. Sophomore year tends to be when the workload gets a little bit, amped up, and you're a little bit tired from the first year. So we're always going to try to strategize ways of making sure you take care of yourself and care for yourself and are kind to yourself. So often in the sophomore year, people are a little bit hard on themselves. They had these goals in their freshman year, their first year, and now they're like, yeah. And so we just need to make sure that you're in the process. Everything is going according to the timeline and plan. You're doing fine. Your workload is harder. Or a little bit more. Let's strategize that. And then I think by junior and senior year, you've reached a flow. You've kind of met some of your long-term friends that you have around, or study partners. You qualify exam. That's pretty amazing. And once you've done that, then you formally join a department or an interdisciplinary program. And that's a really big moment. It's not meant to weed anybody out. It's not meant to be too difficult. It is a rite of passage to welcome you in. And we've prepared you for that moment. So there's like a sense of sort of excitement about being able to thesis in a given field or department. And then senior year, it's really exciting because then you're starting to think outside the walls a little bit more and get nostalgic for that first and second year. And so we just have a really good time. And maybe you're telling us a little bit about your thesis experience and helping you navigate that, and then thinking about your life after Reed. And then we're always going to be here after you graduate. So it's always fun to see folks at reunions and Ren Fair and things like that. So I don't know, it's really cool.
I just, as Kelly was speaking, I'm thinking about an advisee that I had who was a psychology major. And we knew each other then during the first 2 years. When this person declared a major, they moved over to an advisor in the psychology department. But then this year, the student took 2 Spanish courses over the course of the year. So we reconnected, and this person was a student in my classes, which was great fun. And then they invited me to be the 4th reader on their orals exam. So then I got to be part of that process at the end. So I really feel like I accompanied this person from the first day to the very last day. And it was really a lovely experience. And then met their family during graduation to kind of round it off. So this is a relationship, maybe in your department, maybe outside your department. It's a outside of your coursework, and hopefully it will be a source of information at the very least, reassurance along the way if you need it and as you need it. And it just deepens, I think, over the years, and really depends on the person, of course, but deepens over the years often in ways that makes it fun to be here.
Yeah, we're never upset if you need to or even want to change advisors. I
No.
know that was something we wanted to talk about a little bit on the list of potential questions we might have, which is, yeah, I mean, you don't even have to tell us. We're not offended. And the reasons you might decide to change can be anything you want. I mean, really, I guess I would say that if you want a particular advisor because you think they're cool, often that can be that's fine, but they might be oversubscribed, right? So if they're like, oh, this famous person in the field, just double check that they are open to accepting new advices, because you want to have that individualized attention. But yeah, it happens. And again, just like what happened with Libby, the time for the general advising might kind of come to an end, and it's time for you to really align closely with an advisor in a particular department. But I've had lots of advisees, former advisees, still come in and say hi. And I'm there as that lighthouse, I think, no matter what, if they need me.
So I think both of you talked a little bit about this, about what happens with students in their senior year as they begin to write their senior thesis. What does that look like for academic advisors? What sort of like, how do you interact with your advisees throughout that process?
Sometimes your thesis advisor and your academic advisor are the same person, and that's a nice relationship. I happen to think it's nice to have a thesis advisor and an academic advisor and have a little line there. And it's mainly because you have a source, someone that you can speak to about the thesis experience that's not your advisor and not somebody on your committee. Again, it might just be troubleshooting. It might be things aren't perhaps not going the way you'd hoped. What should I do? That doesn't happen all that much. And the first advice that I would give is you've got to go talk to your thesis advisor, but it sometimes helps to rehearse that and to think, what does that look like? That I wouldn't expect that to happen, but anyway, this is the person in your 4th year who's going to help you think about the next steps. What am I going to do next year? Do I want to go to medical school right away, or do I want to take a year off? If I take a year off, what's the best way to spend my time? Do I want to figure out how I can spend a year in another country as I catch my breath? I really need to get a job. There's no way I can leave college without having a job, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. Anyway, these are all the kinds of questions, but you all have the luxury of time and don't need to think about that at this point.
Yeah, everything you said, Libby. I think it's nice. I've had it both ways, and so when I do have a thesis, student who's also my advisee, we just kind of play a game where we have separate meetings for each of those things, and I like make a big show of putting on my advisor hat, and we just, or maybe they're taking a course with me, and I'm their advisor, right? So that's also another time when you have to talk to them about their academic performance, good or needs a little improvement. And you just say, okay, right now I'm going to put on my teacher hat, and then we're going to have another meeting where I'm your advisor. It can be helpful again in the fourth year to, sometimes I'll do sort of play acting. So sometimes if you want to broach something, say you're working in the laboratory and you have you're like, how do I talk to this person about not leaving my pipettes on the bench over there? They're my pipettes. And, I'll be like, okay, this is how we actually have constructive, productive dialogue to get what you need. Because I think that's a skill that while we do have a lot of conference and discussion type things, in the lab and in the real world, these are some skills that you might need. So we'll kind of, or you have a professor that you're really shy to talk to, and you want to talk to them about a particular assignment. And so we'll just kind of pretend like I'm that professor, and we'll go through that. So, and it's a safe place to do it. And once they get over the silliness at first, they're like, oh, I'm so glad we did that, because now I'm not nervous about it. And I know that I did it sort of the right way, whatever that may be, the right way for them. Lots of that kind of stuff in senior year.
All right, so we are almost at time. Please feel free to put any remaining questions in the chat. You can also throw these into an email to your admission counselor, and we can help you out with those as well. But Kelly, Libby, do you have any advice for incoming students to sort of close us out?
I just hope this was helpful to you all, and I think that I would just, enjoy summer and relax. If it all seems a little bit abstract and you're not quite sure how the pieces come together, try to relax, and it will. We assure you it will, and we'll get you squared away when you get to campus. In the meantime, the folks in admission are happy to help, and you can also reach out, as Kelly said, to faculty.
Yeah, I would just say there are no stupid questions, and there's no amount of times you can ask the same question again and again that will irritate us or make us upset. We will just try to help you another way. That's what learning is. And the sooner that you, as incoming students, realize that there is no right way to do anything, and that your own gifts and strengths are what are going to sustain you through this, you're going to be fine. Just trust the process, and remember that you come in with your own strengths and weaknesses, and no one's alike. And we're going to work with that, and we're going to bring it out of you, all the good stuff. So we'll see you soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, wonderful. Well, Kelly, Libby, thank you so much for both of your time. I personally found this really, really helpful, at least for me, and I'm sure that our students did as well. A quick PSA for all of our students, a little reminder that the academic questionnaire and the letter of introduction are due June 1st. We've been talking about it a lot today, so just make sure that that is on your radar. And yeah, reach out to us with any questions. We're always happy to help with those. And we are really looking forward to hearing from you all soon.